Hi, my name is John Paul Raj and I'm on a mission to make the learning of math fun. So if you're new to this channel, please do consider subscribing. On this particular video, I'm going to share how to round off, how to convert from one unit to another unit, and how we can preserve accuracy using the TI Nspire CX-II. Let's start. Now, before we jump into the TI Nspire CX-II, I want to first clarify certain things about calculator language. Now, on the calculator, whenever you see scientific notation, this is what you might see. And sometimes this can throw people off, okay? It happened to one of my students and I had to clarify that during the time of the exam. So 3.54 E4 on the calculator, if it displays E4, that E actually means 10 to the power of. So this is actually 3.54 times 10 to the power of. So this actually E represents 10 to the power of. So that's the power, okay? That's the index, that's the power of 10. So it's a power of 10, exponent 10, it stands for. In the same way, if you have a calculator that's displaying a number something like this, 3.54 E negative 4, that would simply mean that the number is 3.54 times 10 to the power of a negative 4. In the same way, if you had the calculator showing you something like this, 3.54 E12, then that just means that's 10 to the power of 12. Okay, so that means it is 3.54 times 10 to the power of 12. This is just some basic things, basic housekeeping before we jump in there. So that is just some basic housekeeping regarding the calculated display of numbers in the scientific notation. So if you happen to see this, don't get perturbed, don't get thrown off. E literally means that it's the exponent to the power of 10. Okay, that's how you're supposed to interpret. The second thing is that in the exam, when you're writing on the paper, don't use this notation. Don't use this E notation, okay? However correct it is only for the calculator. The calculator will talk to you that way with the E, but when you write it on the exam, when you represent that number on the exam, this is what you are expected to write, times 10 to the power of 4. Clear? All right, now let's jump to the calculator. That's our calculator screen. What we're going to do is that, let me just quickly add a calculator page, and that's my calculator page. The first thing I want you to know is that if your calculator is updated to the most recent software, then you know the symbol that shows the level of the battery. If you click on that, if you just click on that directly, if you hover your mouse there and if you click on that calculator battery, not on the degree sign, okay? If you click on the degree sign, it will toggle between degree and radians. But if you click on the battery symbol, it will show you the document settings. The settings, otherwise what you'd have to do is you'd have to go to this home screen, and from the home screen, you go to this number 5 called settings, and there you see this menu. Now, with the recent update, if I go back to the current document, you can just click on that battery symbol and it'll give you the document settings. Why do we need this? Well, every now and then you'll have a question which is required in a different accuracy, meaning a different significant place or decimal place. Okay, some questions will say you want 2 decimal places. So you need to know how to quickly maneuver between the two. Generally, as a norm, leave it as float 3 because that's 3SF, and both in the IB exams and in the IGC exam, you'll be required to report all answers to 3SF or exact figures. So it's a good idea to leave it at float 3. But there might be certain questions that will require you to report the answer in 2 significant figures or 4 decimal places. So you need to know where to come to change that. So if it says 4 decimal places, then guess what? You need to change it to fix 4. Fix stands for decimal places and float stands for significant figures. Okay, so fix 4, and then you can leave the calculation mode on approximate, say okay, and you're back on the document. So now any calculation that you do on any of the pages, because those were universal settings that you've changed, okay, it'll come up to 4 decimal places exactly. So you don't need to even round off, okay? So the point that I'm showing you is that instead of you trying to round off and making some errors or even, spending some time on it, just go here and change the settings. So this is where it is. As I said, you can go to that document settings and then, keep it to float 3 generally if you're an IB student or an IGCC student, and leave that calculation mode on approximate, hit OK, and anything that you do as a general rule will come up to 3SF. Clear? So that is about rounding off. The second thing that I want to show you is the conversion assistant. Okay, there's this key which is called the catalog key. 2 blocks on the right hand side of 9, the number 9. You can see the symbol of the book. If you hit that key, you will see, you'll not directly see this number 3 which said conversion assistant. By default, it will show you the number 1. These are the list of all the syntax to all the commands. If you have forgotten, you can go here and find out. But this number 3, which has the symbol of degree centigrade to degree Fahrenheit, that gives you this thing called the conversion assistant. That's very useful and very powerful. And the way to use this conversion assistant is, say, if, for instance, if you're on the calculator page and you wanted to convert 33 inches to meters or centimeters, 33 inches to centimeters, okay? So you write a number first, and then you go to that catalog key and make your way to conversion assistant, right? So when you hit that, you can see another pop-up menu. And here the first cell is for the category. So you know that 33 inches is a category of length. In the same way, you could have converted, area, volume, time, velocity, whatever that is. So since we're talking about inches or length, let's leave it at length. And we want to convert from, that's the second block. So you can hit tab to go to the next block. And when you arrow down, you can choose where inches is. So that's going to convert from inches and to whatever unit you're trying to convert to. So I said I wanted it in terms of centimeters. Where's that? There you go. Centimeters. Now that I've set it up, I can just say okay, and 33 inches is going to be converted into centimeters. And remember, the calculator set to 3SF. Okay, so when I hit enter, it'll give me 83.8 centimeters. That is accurate. And so even if you do a rough work on your notebook, let's say it was a homework assignment, you can still use the calculator to check your work. Okay, so let's take another example. Suppose you wanted to convert area. All right, so you can do the same thing. First, remember, enter the number. So let's say it was 13.2. And let's go to the, not this key, sorry. Let's go to the catalog key and conversion assistant and choose a category. All right, since we said area, we can go to area, and let's say we want to convert the area from centimeter cube to something like, what do we have? Hectares, okay, something strange, or acres. Why not acres? Okay, centimeter square to acres. And when you say okay, that's what will pop up. Okay, so automatically it will give you that syntax. So first, remember, you enter your number, and then you choose your category, which was whether it's area, whether it's length, whatever that is. And then when you hit enter, it will give the answer up to 3SF. Now, it displays the answer when you set approximate in that E notation, which I've already clarified. So this should be interpreted as 3.26 times 10 to the power of a -7. Okay, that E represents 10 to the power of, okay, times 10. That's what it should stand for. And the -7 is 10 to the power of a -7. Okay, now the third thing that I want to talk to you about is about preserving accuracy. In some questions, you may have, subparts A, B, and C. And let's say the part A was to find the angle and, whatever calculations you did. And let's say the last step that you came was you had to find sine inverse of some value, right? So let's say you had to find sine inverse of 0.23. Okay, I just made that thing up. So when you say sine inverse of 0.23, my calculator is set to degrees right now. So the answer, the angle measure, you're going to get in degrees. So when I hit enter, you'll get 13.3. While we are on the subject of angles, let me quickly remind you that at the time of the exams, you need to report angles. You need to round angles to 1 decimal place. Okay, the other measures are 3SF, as I said, but angles need to be reported to 1 decimal place. And currency, anything to do with money, needs to be rounded off to 2 decimal places. So keep those things in mind. In general, those are the things to keep in mind. 3SF for every other measure, unless otherwise specified. Okay, it might be specified as 4 significant figures or 4 decimal places, but unless otherwise specified, report all answers to exact values or 3SF. But angles needs to be reported to 1 decimal place, and anything to do with finances, financial mathematics, anything to do with money, you need to report those answers to 2 decimal places. Now, the point that I was trying to make was about preserving accuracy. So let's say you had to use this angle measure in some part B or part C of a question that had many subparts. I would suggest that don't use 13.3 because it's already a rounded off value, right? It's a rounded off number. Instead, use the top arrow key to call back that number. When you hit, when you hit the top arrow key, it goes to the previous entry. Okay, so if the more you keep hitting the top arrow key, it'll go back to the previous entry. Okay, one step at a time. But let's say we were at the new entry line. When I hit the top arrow key once, it'll go to 13.3, and when I hit enter, it'll give you all those digits. Can you see that? That was rounded off. So 13.3 was rounded off. So if you were to use the rounded off value in a subsequent part, that's going to increase the error. The error is going to get compounded. My suggestion is that when we preserve accuracy, don't use the rounded off value. Instead, go back by that using the top arrow key, get that number and whatever calculation you want to do with it. Say you want to do, find twice the angle or maybe a third of the angle or multiply it with some radius or something, some kind of question. I'm just making this thing up. My main point is that when you have to do a calculation with a previous value which was rounded off, then don't use the rounded off value, but use the top arrow key. That's the main thing. Use the top arrow key, bring back that value because it will have many more digits. It's more accurate now. It's not rounded off, and then do the calculation. All right, so these were 3 quick tips that can be handy at the time of exams. The first thing we saw that, the calculator is going to give you this notation with E. Remember that E stands for 10 to the power of. And then when we came to the calculator, I also showed you that shortcut. Okay, if you hit that battery icon, okay, it'll take you to the settings page. And why do we need to know that? Well, there will be different questions that will be asking for different degrees of accuracy. And you need to know where to go and change the settings. Float represents significant figures. Fixed represents decimal places. And then the universal settings, I told you 3SF and 2 decimal places for money and 1 decimal place for angle. Then I showed you the conversion assistant, okay, that book, that symbol that looks like the book, that's called the catalog key. When you hit that, you need to make your way to that, okay. By default, it'll be somewhere at 1, but you need to make your way here and then you decide which unit, which category you're trying to convert from what unit to what unit. If I just hit okay without initially putting the number, it will give me something called answer, and it's actually using the previous answer. So if that's not what you want to do, then basically you need to put the number here and you can put whatever number that you are converting. Let's say you wanted to convert 12.3 centimeters square to acres. That will convert that accordingly, 3.04 10 to the power of times 10 to the power of a -7 acres. Okay, so if you don't put the number, then it will give you that answer, and basically it's automatically reading the last answer that was calculated using the calculator. So the correct way to do it is first enter your number and then go and use the conversion assistant accordingly. And then the final thing that I talked to you was about preserving accuracy. All these numbers are rounded off. So in case you're using a certain answer in a subsequent part of the same question, don't use the rounded off answer because that's going to compound the error. Instead, use this key, the top arrow key. Simple tip, use the top arrow key whichever answer, let's say you're using that value, bring it down. It will get all the other digits also. Use that number. Now, of course, this is acres. You don't want that acre. You'll have to take that thing off. Okay, so all those kind of adjustments you need to make. And let's say you wanted to divide this number by, I don't know, I'm just making this thing up, 5,000. And there you go. That'll give you the answer there, 6.52 times 10 to the power of a -11. But the main thing is not the answer. The main thing is preserve accuracy. I hope that these tips will be useful to you at the time of your exams. I'm going to see you all in the next video.